Welcome to the Home Services Success Stories podcast powered by Peakzi, the #1 AI platform for growing your home services business. And on the show today, we have James Wisler, who is the president of Wisler Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electric. James, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am fantastic today. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely great to have you on. So, James, let's jump right in and dig into kind of the history of the company. So, Whistler was founded by your father, Daniel, who founded it in 1986. So, share a bit about the founding story and how his values still continue to influence the business today.
Yeah, in 86, it was just kind of a vision of making a living and providing for your family and very humble beginnings is our organization. And we our back then it was just working out of our home and just kind of a half covered shop area or barn area out back, and it grew over the years. But my father learned the trades. He worked in a manufactured housing plant early on and it really took to plumbing and was going out in the field and doing excavation and laying in underground work for manufactured homes out in the field and then connecting them. And obviously, at that particular place, there was also roofing and electrical and construction, all types of trades. And so that's where he learned that. And obviously, early on in '86, it was pretty much anything that anyone wanting to do, he could do. And over the years, it niched down into plumbing and heating, hydronic heating. We did new construction, commercial, industrial, electrical. We've done a lot of things over the years, but today, obviously, we are, our owner occupied service and install residential plumbing, heating, cooling, and electric is the services that we offer today.
So, it really just started off as a way to make a living, but then
Yeah.
started to figure out what the market wanted, how he could supply it, and it kind of grew into what it was, what it became today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the things that are common today that were the way they were in '86 was just my dad's commitment to excellence and customer service. And there was some things that have evolved over the years, but those things have really stayed the same. And when I think back of being a kid running around in the truck and running those service calls, uh, you know, I, he felt the same about them as I do today, and that is that we're going to do excellent work, regardless of the cost. It's going to be high quality work, and we recognize that the customer is at the pinnacle of what we do, and our desire to deliver customer service at a world class level is always been there, even back in 1986.
So, having literally grown up in the business, do you have any kind of favorite stories of kind of like growing up into it, the genesis of it, stories that your dad told? Like, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, it was just a way of life for us. That's what we did. We worked together. We lived together. And it was a whole lot more fun on a service call than it was, sitting at home, doing chores. So, that was kind of how it is. I can remember being very young, and service calls sometimes late at night after dark. Strange places, strange people, strange homes that I wasn't familiar with. And, that's obviously it takes some courage to, step up to that as a young, boy, if you will. And, I was kind of the guy that ran and got tools and that kind of thing. So it was a long ways a lot of times from the mechanical room out to the vehicle. So, just, those are things that I look back on. I can remember, being a teenager and, the thing that I wanted more really than anything at that particular point was a set of my own tools. And, my dad, definitely made that happen. And, we would go to the supply house and, I slowly put together my own set of tools. And, those things are memories that I have that at a very young age is just part of who I was.
So you really are a product of the industry, like through and through. That's really that's fascinating. So you mentioned leading teams at a really early age, and I believe you started leading teams at 17. So
Oh, yeah.
Was that intimidating? Was that scary? Like, how do you think that shaped you as a leader today, having done it for so long?
Yeah, when I think back on that, at the time, it really wasn't intimidating and scary because, it was very familiar because I had been doing it at such a young age, even years prior to that, and observing and watching. But today, as I look back, I was super underdeveloped and underprepared to do that. And I think that, what I've learned is that leadership, it's not an art, or excuse me, it is an art, it's not a science. And, then maybe it was just kind of a task to be done or a box to check. But I really feel like that today I understand that leadership is really it's a craft to be honed and improved. And, at the core of leadership and some of the lessons that I've learned over the years is that, you have to love people. And, I may have been a little more task oriented, younger, at that 17, it was just about getting the job done or, the project done, the service call ran. Today it's more about, okay, who's involved and where are we going? And, is there fulfillment and enjoyment, and are we delivering value to the client and fulfillment to the team member that's, offering that service?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think especially in trades, sometimes it can be so kind of maybe transactional, but here your focus is more so on the person,
Yeah.
whether it's a customer or your team member. So I think that's a great point. So I know that the phrase "thanks, Dad" is very important to the Whistler brand. So what does that mean, and how does that reflect the culture that you have?
Yeah, it started several years ago. It was kind of just something, our dad and family has always been a big part of our organization. And so we was just throwing some things around one day and, the term "thanks, Dad" come out. And so we coined that here within our messaging, to our community. And you know, it really is just about us saying thanks to our dad, for the opportunity that he's presented us, for the character building that took place, in us as his kids, but also to the commitment of quality and excellence that he brought to the organization and the culture. And those things are part of his legacy, I think. But there's kind of another closer thing that that thanks Dad represents, and that is that we say thanks to our Heavenly Father, that guides us each and every day, and where our faith rests as well. So, that it kind of has a twofold meaning, but by and large, it's us just saying thanks to our dad for the opportunity and the organization, and starting the service that we've now grown in the community.
I love that. There's sort of two layers. Thanks, Dad, to your actual earthly father for
Hmm.
the business that he's built, walking in gratitude, instilling those values, and then to your heavenly father, right?
Yeah,
There's kind of a
absolutely.
bigger,
Yeah.
a bigger meaning to all of it. I think that's
Yeah, and of course our faith value is very prominent here, and it's one that we don't, we probably hold those cards a little closer to our chest than maybe the just the us saying thanks to our our dad here. So
hmm. Well, we're here on the topic now, and that is a central role to your life. It's so how do those values, your faith values, affect the way that you lead and you serve your customers?
yeah, we believe in a right and wrong and an absolute truth, and that absolute truth is grounded in the Word of God for us.
Mhm.
Grace is the energy that powers the greatest thing ever, and that's salvation. That's what we believe. And what I have found in business, that accountability and grace, it's an amazing thing in business. So we believe that those things, that they don't they transcend those boundaries, if you will. And I think that it's essential for the success that we have here in the organization.
Can you share how your faith maybe has influenced any of your business decisions?
Yeah, it transcends, I don't separate it.
Hmm.
Some people may approach it as a religion, and I don't. I approach it as a faith. And so, who I am in my home, who I am at church, and who I am in this business is the same person. It's more of a lifestyle for me. So, doing the right thing outside of work is the same thing as doing the right thing in a transaction or a relationship with a client, or how we represent the organization, or how we interact with our team members here. It's all the same thing to me. So I don't think for us it's there is no separation. It's something that's constantly just who we are and how we approach all things, whether it be making a decision, business decision financially or strategically, or with our personnel, or we just believe in doing the right thing, and we believe in good Christian values, and how we interact with people. And I think that Christian values are really about that. It's about how we interact with each other, and how we present ourselves to the world.
I can definitely appreciate that. I'm a Christian myself, and thank you very much for sharing a bit about your faith here, James. So, but it seems like so much of what we are talking about is leadership. So, one thing that you have mentioned is that it takes courage, right?
Mhm.
Specifically, taking calculated risks. It's played a big role in your success. So, share a bit about that.
Yeah, I think it takes courage to grow. Um, it takes courage to keep going, you know. And over the years, I've been doing this for quite a few years now, and I think that courage is contagious, but it's inspiring. And when we was a smaller organization, it took courage to invest, and to put back in the business and invest the time and energy and resources, and that can be scary. What if this fails, or, what, but, you have to have courage to kind of step up. And that kind of courage, again, it's contagious and it's inspiring. Those around you see that you have courage to do that and to grow, individually and as an organization. I think it takes courage. One of the things that will, kind of, I guess, forever be, you know, burned into my mind is, it was a very pivotal point back in 2008, and there was a housing crunch, and we was in new construction, and, we shut down new construction, and, just kind of never looked back. And that took courage. I mean, there was customers there, there was people there was revenue there. And to make those tough decisions, and looking back today, it was probably one of the better ones that we made. And it was very timely, before it even got worse. In 2020, whenever COVID hit, that was, it was, a lot of unknowns there in March of 2020. And, our people are coming to us going, what are we going to do? And, this is what I'm hearing. And, it takes courage to stand up and say, you know what, we're going to keep doing everything that we was doing last week and last month and last year. We're going to buckle down, and we're going to keep serving regardless of the potential risk. And, it panned out. Now, obviously, we've done that with some caution here and there where appropriate, but, that's kind of the display of courage, and why I think it's so important, especially for a growing organization that's committed to people's growth, and one that is committed to world-class customer service. I think it takes courage to deliver those things. And I also say, a faith-based business, it takes courage to do that as well. So,
Yeah. And it's interesting how adversity seems to draw out that courage. And it seems like you are all better because of it. So,
mhm.
that being said, now, of course, you are a leader in the space, and Whistler is very well known for its commitment to sustainable, long-lasting quality. So, how do you define sustainable quality, and what practices do you ensure within the business so every project meets that standard?
Yeah, I think when I think of sustainability, the dichotomy there is just it's not a flash in the pan. It's a long-term thinking, if you will. And our drive for excellence is found, in our attention to our processes. We have a lot of processes, we have systems here in place, and it truly is our attention to the details of those things that really leads us to a place of quality. Those processes include how we answer the phone, how we approach a visit to a client's home, our communication, how we communicate with each other in the organization, and how we communicate with those outside the organization, how we communicate with our clients, how we complete the work. Is there a standard that we live up to? And this is how we do it. It's not just left to chance, if you will. How we handle addressing expectations. Clients have expectations, we have expectations. How we align those things, I think, speaks to quality. How we follow up after the transaction with serving the client. Do they know how to, work that piece of equipment that they bought, or do they understand what actually went on, or, do they understand, that we're still here even if they have problems with those things. So, those are all things that I think are part of, just sustainable, long-lasting quality. And, one of our pieces of our mission statement here is to grow profitably. And we do not apologize for being profitable here, and that is one of the reasons why. If an organization is not profitable, it will go out of business eventually. And we can't be there for the team that has put their trust and confidence in us, and the customers that have put their trust and confidence in us. So, we believe that you can't sell out for one number. And I think true value is found in sustainable solutions and strategy.
I think what's interesting, what you said about that is, yes, you spoke about the work, but more so about the holistic customer experience. You mentioned even from the way that you pick up your phone. So it is that kind of end-to-end experience you're delivering for them.
Yes. Yes.
That's great. So you're also really big in talking about world-class customer service, and you've already touched on that. But how do you teach your team to deliver world-class customer service? How do you scale that from just a tagline to an actual experience you deliver for your customers?
Yeah, several years ago, I have been recorded saying that it's all about the team member and the employees of the organization. And I've changed that philosophy, over the years to, I've always thought very highly of the customer. I really have. But I've put them back at the top of the food chain where they belong. And, I think it starts with a culture of understanding that, team members don't even exist without a customer, right? And so, I think our whole team has to embrace that and understand that, everything exists here in the organization and in the business, because we have customers. And then it moves to hiring people that care about customers. Obviously, everyone here has an impact on the customer experience. And it's even more critical for those that are customer facing, the ones that answer the phone and the ones that, go into the homes, and, even our leadership staff here. So we also really lean heavily on just constant training and reinforcement. And I think even more importantly than training, it's reinforcement of those proven processes of, just offering and delivering and executing on that world-class customer service. Our weekly focus on both positive and less than positive customer feedback. That's part of our cadence here. We are always talking about, what is the customer saying, and tuned into that and trying to either grow from it or celebrate, those successful tasks or systems, or, the things that are creating that positive feedback. I think we are not perfect here. We do fall short, and being able to address those concerns super fast, like within an hour, if not just a couple hours, and truly getting resolution to that concern, by empowering the leaders around us to resolve those concerns at hopefully the first point of contact. So, those are some things that I think that we've leaned into here. Uh, and so I think also it's just part of us establishing what does best in class customer service look like, and what are those standards, and then not backing down from them. And I say that because over the years in this organization, there have been peaks and valleys of certain areas within our customer service systems. And, but not compromising them, keeping them high. And, if we're not there at this moment, then we work to get there so that we just stay committed to that standard.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuggets I took away from there. The first was number one, putting the customer first and designing the entire business around that. Number two, I heard hiring the right people to make sure they match
Hmm.
with the values. Three,
Hmm.
training and constant development of your people. And the fourth one was really just listening to the customer, paying attention
Yeah.
to them, hearing the feedback, and continuing to improve through that whole communication loop. I think that's great.
Yes.
So James, let's shift gears just a bit. You're a customer of Peakzi. This podcast is brought to you by Peakzi. So, what has been your experience working with Peakzi and their team?
Yeah, Pawan was kind of the start of that, and I guess it's been probably almost 2 years ago now, maybe. And I think that Peakski is at the front. They're charting a course at the front, and I think they're leading a path for home service businesses to leverage public data, whether it be through AI or just, which is obviously a big part of that. I think the team at Peakski cares. They care about being at the front. They care about offering value to the organizations that are working and partnering with them. And we've implemented several data points, if you will, that Peakski has provided us, whether it's the detractors. I spoke about paying attention to customer feedback. We use those reports within our weekly rhythm here to address, the themes and the feedback that's happening, in that public facing data. We, definitely also use that to just, our quality standards. And so we've implemented several of the functions within Peakski into our organization with positive results. And it's just easy to get to, and it creates good rhythm with that.
And what would you say has been the biggest improvement in the business being a customer of Peakzi?
Yeah, I think it's just being aware. Sometimes there can be a lack of transparency around competitors. And, that consistent transparency and being able to see that paints a more clear picture of what's going on within our community.
Gotcha. So understanding what's happening within the market, how does your business
Yes.
compare, identifying any kind of gaps that you may have that you can improve to continue to level up your service. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, James, we're just about the end here. So close us out with some final thoughts. What would you like the world, our audience, to know more about Whistler, and close us out also with the vision that you have for the future as the president of the company?
Yeah, I we plan to continue to grow here. That's a big part of our organization, and just being able to impact the community. I think be continuing to be a leader in our space and our community, expand our footprint, and stay committed to the things that got us here. Obviously, things will evolve and become different, but there's so many shiny things out there that promise success. And, I've found that true success is found in truth, a commitment to balance, delivering value to those that we transact with, and investing in others' growth. And so I think that that's kind of where the future lies here. It's a recipe for success for us. It has been, and we'll continue to put those ingredients into the bowl, and just looking forward to what the future brings here.
And I think that's a great vision for the future indeed. So, James, plug your website, your social handles. How do people get a hold of you, learn more about the business, and connect with you personally?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, my email is very simple, james@whistler.com. And, our website is callwhistler.com. And so, any way that I could connect with others, I'd be happy to do so.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to have all your contact information in the show notes as well. So, James, thank you so much for sharing your story with us here today.
You're quite welcome. It's an honor to be here.
Well, everyone, that's it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Home Services Success Stories podcast powered by Peakzi, the #1 AI platform for growing your home services business.